welcome to another episode of Developer Drop-In. You can hear this pause where I didn't mute the other version of the... Oh, I see. There we go. That's better. I can't hear myself more than once now. And the first 5 seconds were great. And then I started feeding back to myself. So that was a little bit strange. Awesome. It's all under control. What I don't have is... Oh, I don't have chat. Hi, Kyle. Hi, Lauren. There are people chatting to me. Well, I don't seem to actually have it visible. So let me just... It's definitely here. Let me just have a quick look at that. All right, yeah. I see you. Okay. Is that better? Did I do something? Oh, you're just peeping out. What are you doing over there? Let's try and get that chat somewhere we can all see it. Come here. That's better. It's not perfect. I think a bit of it might still drop off. But if I put you over there, I think that will let more of us join into the conversation. Awesome. Okay, so this week I am, as you can see, by myself. Just me. But that is fine because our focus is going to be on Git and GitHub. So I'm just going to spend this time with you sharing some of my Git tips, Git gotchas, general advice, and also spend some time taking your questions. So I'm hoping that some of you are here with things that you're wondering about Git or GitHub, and I'm hoping to help you with the things that you're thinking about rather than just telling you the things that I'm thinking about. So that is the plan. As such as there is ever a plan. I don't want to overcook the concept that we know what's happening here, because this time is very much for you to have access to us and ask us questions, and for us to sort things out. I'm getting a yay from chat. Ben says, yay, Git time. Yep, indeed, Ben, you cannot have too much Git. I definitely, it's one of those skills that it's a necessary hazard. You love it, hate it. I definitely hated it for about the first 5 years. But it is an important part of the work that we do today, and kind of how we operate. So it's there whether you like it or not. So if you have your Git questions, you can type them in the chat. There was some conversation on Twitter about making tea. And after I had talked about making tea this much, now I have indeed made tea and it's probably ready to pour. So I'm going to do that. Let's see if we get any Git questions. Otherwise, you're going to get things Lorna wishes everybody knew about Git, which is, well, I'm supposed to be only streaming for 90 minutes, and all the advice I wish everybody knew definitely takes longer than that. Greg wants to know if I saw the video of the American lady in the UK showing people how she made tea. Okay, this is how you make tea. A mug. You can use a fancy teacup if you like. I'm using a LibreOffice mug because that's what was clean. We seem to be having a mug issue. I have some milk. The milk goes in first. I can't get this on camera without pouring it all over my keyboard, so let's not do that. Milk. Oh, I can't reach. Okay. My desk is huge. Teapot. Like, this is how you make tea. Apply boiling water into a pot. Hope it doesn't spill all over your keyboard. Oh, that's a good colour. Huh. Marvellous. And there's some tea left in the pot, so that'll keep me going through our chat. Greg says, American tea making caused outrage on social media. Yeah, and rightly so. Like, drink tea or don't drink tea, I don't mind. But if you can't do it properly, then just don't. Lauren is asking why, like, I want to say I'm not ignoring the Git question that's in chat as well. We're going to talk about tea and then I'm going to move on. Lauren wants to know why the milk goes in first. So, Lauren, if you're making tea just in a mug for one person, you can put the boiling water on the tea bag, and once the tea is made in like a replacement pot, you can put the milk in second. It's not, like, I would never be offended at a tea party if somebody put the milk in after the tea. It's not a big thing. Traditionally, the milk went in first because if you had like a proper old-fashioned bone china mug, it would crack if you put boiling tea into it. So you had to put the milk in first, and then it was done in a sort of snobby, oh well, of course this is my best china sort of a way. So tradition is the answer. Where did my accent just come from? Yeah, I don't know. I'm channeling a lady with a tea set. It's I am not sure. The telephone voice got carried away and transported back to the 1900s. Okay, I'm super pleased that somebody did show up to talk to me about Git, so that person is having priority now. Ben says, what's your opinion on Git squash? When should commits be squashed? When should they not be squashed? Oh, controversial. I quite like this. So let's talk about what it means to squash a commit, because I know that I have people in chat that won't have seen this. How shall I do this? Shall I just make some commits and squash them and talk as I go? Let's try that. So let's find I'm going to start with a terminal, and let's make sure you can see that. And I can see my terminal, that's always the hardest part. No, wrong button. All right, so let's make a squash directory. When you make a commit and you make a bunch of them, each one has information in it. So each one has some stuff about, I can't see the chat now, hold on, I've done something wrong. There we go. Each one has some stuff about the commit, the change that you made, the author of the commit, the commit message, and you can squash them down into one commit. So what that does is it gives you, rather than having like a whole branch of commits and then all of those commits appear on the main branch when you merge it in, you can make them down into one branch, into one commit, and then just make it tidy on master. I'll draw you a picture instead of waving my hands around in a minute. So it looks like this. So if we go, we're starting a new Git repository. Let's add some commits. I'm trying to think, can I do this in empty files? Probably. And then, oh, I can't type. This is the downside of doing this live. You know, sometimes I do I used to give quite a lot of Git conference talks, and it was all very well rehearsed demos and lots of pre-made scripts. I'm not sure that's realistic, so and I couldn't guess what you were going to ask me. I wouldn't have guessed squash, but this is actually a really good question. It's too early to give awards for the best question, but I'm pretty sure this is going to make the short list. So I'm just going to make some commits here. I would add that when you commit with commit messages like this, we've all seen this, right? You read the diff and you can see that the README file is changed and the commit message says updated README. And you think, yeah, I'm reading the diff. Thanks, friend. I'm obviously doing the same thing here, just adding commits with no value. And then you might as well squash. The teams that I see that squash are people who don't have good commit discipline. I'm generalizing, but that's how I see it. So what we've got now is all of this is on the master branch. Oh, I should have put this on a different branch. That's okay. Let's put this on a different branch. Your accent is from South Carolina. No, no. I'm British, and my accent is really nondescript from England. Like an English person couldn't tell you where I'm from. Pretty sure we have people in the chat who know where I'm from. But I have lived in lots of different places. I now live in Yorkshire. There's no way I'm acquiring a Yorkshire accent. You have to be born into that, I think. Learning some of the vocabulary, but definitely not the accent. Greg is saying if he didn't know me, he wouldn't know where I live or where I'm from. Yeah, my accent is definitely not from where I live, and it's not from where I'm from either, because 10 years on the conference circuit, making yourself understood in other places, and moving around the country a lot as well, means it's just neutral now. Cool. So what I am going to do here is check out a branch at this point. I'm not going to switch to it. I'm just going to branch it. Git branch feature. And I'm going to just push my master branch back a couple of commits. Git. That one. 6367. So let me show you my favorite set of switches to Git Log. Git Log with graph, one line, decorate, and then I'm going to use all here, and you'll see all a lot today because we're working with such small numbers of branches. But I often just list the branch names that I want here because on a big project there's too much going on. Kyle says, I'm in Huddersfield and I have a Yorkshire accent. Kyle, I aspire to it. Huddersfield is my chosen home and I intend to live here for the rest of my life. I don't know if I'm going to acquire the accent, but I can work on it. Cool. So that was a tangent. It was a good one. Huddersfield tangents are the best tangents. Greg is from East London, currently living in North Essex. Yeah, I'm sorry, Greg. Ben, am I pronouncing this right? Ben's says, everything I know about UK accents I learned from Downton Abbey. Is that good? I'm not much of a TV watcher. I haven't got into it. Awesome. Okay, so we've got a master branch with commits on it. We've got a couple of commits on the feature branch. I'm going to add one more commit onto the master branch now. I should have... There's a really good set of scripts for doing this kind of adding random commits work, and I should have... They're probably somewhere on my machine, but we'll just... Right. So I've got commits on master. Where's my graph command? There it is. And commits on feature. To squash means to combine 2 and 3 into a single commit. Now, bearing in mind there could be lots of changes and there could be really good descriptive commit messages, completely unlike the ones you're seeing here. And to make it into a single commit, and then we can apply that single commit onto master and it'll just apply in a single commit. Kyle is guessing you're from Midlands, Worcestershire area, getting little bits of accent. Yes, absolutely spot on, Kyle. South Birmingham. And yeah, I think you can hear it. You can hear it more. I don't drink anymore, but like, yeah, in a bar or on the phone to my sister, then you can really hear it. Cool. Excellent. I'm going to go and squash that feature branch. Now, there isn't a git command squash. What we do is we interactively rebase. Now, interactive rebase is an incredible sledgehammer. It allows you to make all sorts of changes to history. You can remove commits, you can reorder commits. I'm going to combine commits. It's a really good way to lose work as well. The rebase and reset commands are both excellent for losing commits. Just going to try and push this chat a little bit more onto the screen and hope that I don't break. Oh, I see. That's better. Okay. The git reset and git rebase commands are really good ways to lose work. And this is one of the ways. If you've committed it, we can get it back. If you've not committed it and you do this, we can't get it back. That's the end of the story. So, I'm on the feature branch. If I look at the history, you can see 2 and 3, those are commits onto here. and I want to rebase onto the one commit. So you do git rebase -i, and I'm going to just I'm going to rebase the last two commits, right? Commit 2 and commit 3. By doing head, meaning the last commit that this, that my current working directory is based on, and then -2, going back 2 steps. So this is quite useful syntax you can check out, head, tilde, and something as well. It's quite handy. Right. Can't see a terminal. Oh yeah, look, I flicked back to camera. Oh, yes. Let's go. Right, but the chat is all over the place on this one. Let me just fix this because I think it's easier if you can all see the chat. Better. Perfect. Thank you. So, I'm doing git rebase -i for interactive, so I'm not rebasing a whole branch, I'm just working on the commits that are before where I am. And I'm doing rebasing what I have here onto the name of a commit 2 commits ago. Now I could put the commit hash in here, so could type 6367F, whatever. But this shorthand lets me just refer to it. Now, what is confusing about this view is when you run Git Log, you get the most recent thing, and then the thing before that, and then the thing before that, and they go back in history down the page. As soon as you run git rebase -i, you get those commits with the oldest one first. And so time, instead of going that way, goes this way. This confuses me every time. So just something to look out for, that the oldest commit is first, and then the other commits follow. The first commit, I'm a bit embarrassed about my commit message, so I'm going to reword that. And the second commit, you can see there's an S for squash. So that's how Rebase Interactive works. You change the word at the beginning of the line. I can change the order of these lines. I can take out a line if I don't want it to happen. And then I can squash. Instead of squash, I'm actually going to use fixup here. And if you read the docs for fixup, it's like squash, but it discards the commit message. So I'm going to write one commit message for commit 2, and I'm going to have the changes from 3 in the single commit, but not with an extra commit message. That was a terrible explanation. I hope this is making some sense to somebody. When I save and close this editor, the change will occur. It's going to prompt me because I want to rewrite the commit message for done for commit 2. Oh, can't spell. Magic. So one thing I like about commit messages is the ability to put in that headline. So just keep that super short, a single sentence. If there's more that you're going to need, and this can be a note to your future self or any archaeologists that come this way trying to solve some future problem, you can read some more detail here. Right, so you can kind of say a bunch of things about that. I have a favorite article about commit messages, so we can probably find that too. All right, perfect. Probably seems like a bit of an anticlimax, but if I show you the current state again, I'm not sure this makes any sense. Then you can see we've got the 1, the master branch has the 4 commit, and then we have also a single commit for feature. So I can merge that into master now, and it'll appear as just one new commit. There won't be any messy merge commits. There won't be any internal detail for the amazing feature that I was working on. It's just a really good way of tidying up. Now, some projects will require that you do this. Some projects will make sure that you they will only accept your pull request if it's down into a single commit. I hate this, really. If I had my own way, everyone would make amazing commit histories all the time, and we would never squash it. We would never throw it away. If you ever come back to debug something, it can be so useful to see what the developer was thinking, to see the order that they built things in and what was happening. So it's a really... it's so frustrating to me when people squash, particularly squashing with like automated commit messages. Maybe it's just the title of the pull request or something. I feel it's lossy. People have done work and we've thrown it away, and I think that work does have value. So I'm not a fan. So if the question is, when should commits be squashed? It's never, if your commit history is good. Now, you've just seen Git Rebase interactive. I use that so much before I open the pull request. So the most common use case for this is we have a bunch of API specification files and they have version numbers. So when you make a change, you need to increment the version number. And we have a reminder in the pull request template for this. Actually, we have an automated check on the build as well now. But I used to open the pull request, like go to start doing that, go and fill in the pull request template, get to the checkbox that says I have incremented the version number, go, oh yeah, come back, change the version number, make an extra commit, and then Git Rebase interactive to merge those commits so that we didn't have an extra commit for the version number change. So I do use Git Rebase-I to tidy up my branch commit history. There are lots of reasons why everything's not perfect first time. But just generically squashing everything and saying none of these commits were logical, meaningful, or had any useful information in them, I think it's a mistake. But like I say, I very judgmentally think it is much more prevalent in teams that don't have good commit message or like commit inclusion practice. I helped someone with a Git problem yesterday and they were doing like a big find and replace, but it meant that there was just a massive amount of change in a single commit. And I find that frustrating. I'd rather see, I built this part, then the other part. Like, here's one function and its tests. Here's another function and its tests. Here's the README update that covers all that stuff that I just did. And here's something that was a suggestion from review. Like, that's fine. I want to see those things. Ben says, old commits might be scarier than mummies. Yeah, I've been a Git consultant. And I think that experience of going into lots of different organizations, trying to help them with their Git workflow and disentangle some old problems, or if they really got in a mess, then that's, I was freelance for a while and I was doing that sort of work. And I think having seen the possible dangers of really militant squashing, then squash is something that I tend to steer away from if I possibly can. So hopefully that answers your question. Do you have more questions? What else should we talk about? Oh yeah, what about all the most valuable commits like? Please work, please work. Hoping this will work, please. Yeah, I think that's why I mentioned the Git Rebase, especially for things like you push a commit. We have quite a lot of things running on a pull request build now, so I will often push a commit, works for me, but fails the build because Usually because I have introduced a British spelling into the documentation. That happens quite a lot. We have automated testing for that. So I'll push and the build will fail. So then you will kind of have these extra commits, or just fixing one thing. Oh no, I just thought of another thing. That's fine, but that's where I think, yeah, maybe that's where it's cool to squash a few commits on your own branch, not just a whole branch all the time. So by all means, just combine a few things where it didn't quite work out the first time. And the other place where I see this is if you have automated deployment. So if you're working on a project and pushing like test deploys to cloud, often you need to commit for that. And that makes for a really messy commit history. But go back and just squash those last few that have got the Rubocop commits. Yes. Just trying to please the lint gods. Feel free to squash those last few commits in. If you have already opened the pull request and you have those extra commits, if you rebase, you need to force push. And if I'm saying anything that's unfamiliar here, then like that would be an excellent question to ask me. Please type in the chat for anything that I'm saying that like you should know and you don't. That's exactly what I'm hoping you will ask me. If you've already opened the pull request and then the build fails and you need to make some extra changes, you can still squash. You'll have to force push. If you have collaborators on that branch, on that pull request, I would just be a bit careful about that, because I think I certainly work with a lot of people that wouldn't necessarily look out for that, or wouldn't know how to rescue themselves when suddenly they couldn't push anymore. And then you start to get these like extra merges and it's all a bit messy. So I think just be a little bit careful if you're force pushing to any shared branch, and you need to force push if you squash even just the last few commits, but it's fine to squash the last few commits. Oh yeah, comment on my British spelling. You mean the proper English spelling? Yeah, Kyle, I go around the world apologising if my English is too English for people. But we've standardised on American spellings, so, here we are. This is a great question. Am I reading between the lines that you might not be the biggest fan of automated workflow testing in repositories? Actually, Ben, you're wrong about that. I'm a massive fan. I love that the build fails when I open the pull request. I mean, I've got opinions about the British spelling, obviously. It's great that it's there. I think we don't have any build stuff that I don't want. But I feel it causes those extra commits, right? Because it's not as simple as, looks okay on my machine, someone else will test it and now we'll deploy it to master. I've been doing web dev that long that that's how our workflow used to look. I think the extra automated stuff is really valuable. I absolutely love it because it helps me get things so right. But your question about what about the extra commits, like trying to please the syntax check, trying to fix the spelling. Oh, there was a build fail. It's the automated tests that make us, automated CI stuff makes us raise our game, and sometimes that means extra commits when you thought you were finished. No, they're a good thing. I'm totally in favour, and that's one reason why I wanted to show you this interactive rebase, because I think it's something that is going to come up for all of us, and it's just a good skill to be able to include those in your original commit. Awesome. Okay, so who else has questions about Git? I feel I said a bunch of Git related things which might not be super familiar to everybody when I was talking about squashing, or ideally not squashing. So is there any of that you'd like to pull out and ask me about, or do you have a different question for me? Oh, Alex is here and he has a question. Hi, Alex. Nice to see you hanging about in the chat. How do I rename the default branch in a repository? Now, for an existing repo, you can, there's a setting in GitHub for it. So if you, I'm trying to think if I have a demo repo. Let's go. One way to find out, we'll just go and dig around my GitHub account. I'm not sure where focus went then, but it wasn't on the window I was looking at. There we go. Focus follows eyes. Definitely needs to be invented. Oh, this isn't... Let's see what happens. Okay, so let's just dig around in the repositories list. I'm sure there's something here that could be sacrificially messed about with. Probably not anything that I've forked. Let's use this corporal demo. Now, if you've watched the stream in the past, then you might have seen this come past, but it's a good example, and I have admin access to it, so I can change stuff. Here we go. So there's a setting. I'm not exactly sure where it is, so I'm just going to click around madly for it. Features, issues, sponsorships, data services, merge button. Yeah, right, cool. Branches. Default branch. The default branch is set to master. To change this setting, add another branch. That's a really good point. I don't actually have a branch. Oh, I see. It's linked me to the manual. Brilliant. Okay, so what we'll do here is we will find where that is on my hard drive. There it is. Check that we're up to date. Check out from where I am right now to a new branch. Now, I'm seeing a bunch of people moving away from the master branch naming in Git. One option is to use something like default, which Mercurial used to use, and I think that's quite a nice naming convention. I'm seeing a lot of people use main though, so I'm going to use main today. So let's check out main. And then let's push it. So I'm going to push this up to my origin, and I'm going to call it main on the origin as well. You don't have to call it the same thing, but it's much less confusing for me if I do. So that's typically what I do. So let's have another go with these settings now that I've pushed an additional branch. The default branch is considered the base branch. So I'm going to say the default branch should be main, and I'm going to update that. And I understand that there will be consequences. So if you have other collaborators on a repo, and especially if you have open pull requests, this will have side effects. There's a bunch of good articles around, and I'll try and dig a couple of those out for you. Alex is asking, can he change the put? Can I do that from the command line? I've got close to 200 repos by now. Do you know? I don't know. There's probably a GitHub API endpoint for this, but I am not sure. I normally do it like this. I am also in the nearly 200 repos camp. A lot of those are forks though. A lot of my repositories are I'm a collaborator on somebody else's project, so I'll get their settings. And I think one at a time is perfectly good. But like I say, look out for the open pull requests. When you change the default branch, the side effects are that people who clone your repository will get that branch by default. So if I copy this, I think that copied, and do a new clone of it, I'm just going to get inside here so I don't clone it to the same place. There we go. So if I do git clone and something I hopefully just copied, that looks right. And then, so that's my clean clone. It brings down the master branch. It exactly doesn't bring down the master branch. Try again, Lorna. It brings down the main branch, gives me a main branch locally, links the two, and checks my local repo out onto the main branch. The other thing that the default flag does in GitHub is if I open a pull request here, new pull request, when you start a new pull request, the base, it shows you which branch you're pull requesting against. So by default, the pull requests will go through to the main branch, which is what we want here. If you're using Git flow, then this is develop. So there's no big deal to change the name of your main branch. If you have open pull requests, you need to come and edit them and change their base. Alex, I think I have seen a script to change the base of the pull requests though, so you can go back and do that. Excellent. I think that's everything I want to say about that. On renaming branches, just go and look for the settings, and maybe somebody can Google quickly if we can do it programmatically, because I don't know. I saw another question come in while I was still talking about that, so I'm just going to call that out. It's Ben. Everybody's called Ben today. Like, it's all good, or at least the friendly chat people. Say I'm working in my branch and there's some new update to the master branch. Do I stop immediately and merge differences, or do I wait until I finish my feature? I've heard different opinions. And different projects will want you to do this differently. So there isn't really a right way, but I'm going to tell you my preferred way, and I'm going to tell you why I prefer it. I prefer that you just keep going on your feature branch until you think you're pretty much there, unless there's something in particular that you know is in master that you need to take account of. Then, don't merge what's in master into your feature branch. Instead, rebase your feature branch onto master. So I'm waving my hands around. I'm going to try and draw your diagram. With new and untested technology. I haven't done this on stream before, but let's give it a try. So this is my Android tablet. I have a drawing implement. Well, you can let me know if this is making any sense or not. Let's get this where I can see it. So let's just start with the master branch. So if time is going from left to right, we've got there are a bunch of commits going on. Each blob is a commit. I'm not sure my drawing skills are up to this. This seemed like a really good idea before I started. Anyway, so we've got some commits going on in master. This is actually way too many commits because I need room to add some more in a minute. Okay. And then you are going to start your feature. And listen, Ben, your feature is a masterpiece. Okay. It's going to change all of our lives. So you branch off the current tip of master and you start work. This is you're doing amazing commits here, and it is blue, but it's the second row up if the colors are making no sense to you. Meanwhile, back on the master branch, there's been more work going on. Some of it's quite major. I'm not sure a big circle really works here, but phew with me. And let's say your feature's finished. Instead of merging all of these changes, I'm running out of colors. Instead of merging all of these changes in on top of your work, don't do that. Instead, I think you should rebase. So take the work that you did, I'm not sure how well this is going to work, and move it to be based on the current tip of master. And this literally tries to replay each of your commits, one commit at a time. So the first thing you did was you set up some extra config so it replays that commit, and then you did the database patches so it replays that commit. Now, the thing to be careful of here is each commit has the potential to cause a conflict. When you do a merge conflict, right, the tip of one branch meets the tip of another branch, and there can be conflicts. When you rebase, every single commit meets the tip of master plus its ancestors. So this The only reason to not rebase is sometimes it's a nightmare. But never be afraid to rebase. And I think it's the most tidy, because when you merge master into your branch, then all those commits are in together, and it can be hard to tell which changes are yours and which are not. GitHub does a reasonably good attempt at kind of putting things, like hiding the things that don't belong to you. Just distracted by the cat wandering around. That's hilarious. He's not on screen, so that's fine. GitHub does a good job of hiding the extra mess when you merge master into the feature branch. And they also recommend it in really strange scenarios. But rebasing, I think, like this, with moving your work and replaying it all on master, which is what the rebase does, is the right thing to do. And is a really good way to incorporate your changes if the branch has been open for a while. Ben, does that help? I would also like to clearly agree with the chat that features made by Ben usually are masterpieces. This is also my experience, that masterpieces are often made by Bens, or certainly can be. Another Ben says, as a VS Code user, I find the presentation of merge conflicts in the IDE relatively easy to navigate. Yeah, so I think that's a big thing. Now, I use Git entirely from the command line, and that's my familiar. But I will often diff. I do use vimdiff, but still, a graphical diff is really useful. The VS Code, Git, and GitHub integration is great. The GitHub desktop view is also really good to understand what's going wrong. So those tools can really help you a lot. Ben is saying, oh, this helped. Good. I've always been terrified of rebase. Ben, don't be terrified of rebase. There are some things that I think are really important when you want to safely rebase. One is, wherever you are on your feature branch, you can always check out another branch pointing to the same commit and make whatever changes you want on that branch that will never touch your original branch. So you can always check out a practice branch, try the merge, see what happens, and if all goes wrong, just pretend it wasn't you. The other thing is, as well, when you rebase, I mean, for me, that's from the command line. You can start a rebase, but until it completes, you can always back it out. So you can always type git merge -- abort. And it's like mission aborted. And it'll put everything back to how it was. So there's always that safety net of either being able to create an extra branch. If it goes wrong and you haven't pushed your changes, you can just use the remote version of your branch to get back to where you were. It's actually not very risky. The only thing I would say is if you do get into trouble, difficulty, long grass with any of these Git surgery operations, then don't be afraid to ask for help, because sometimes trying one thing and then another thing can make a bit more of a mess. I would love to take a journey in time in Doctor Who's TARDIS and get your perspective on the history of different version control methods like Subversion and why Git won the day. Okay, yes, I am old enough to have worked with Subversion. I considered myself a Subversion power user at the time, and I really didn't get on with Git. I found the transition really quite difficult. Git is so much more powerful, and I think that was quite difficult to get your head around. Subversion had a couple of big differences from Git. One is that it had just a central server, so you could only commit when you had connection. And at that time, I was traveling quite a lot, but I didn't have a smartphone. There wasn't Wi-Fi. So we used to get these commits that were like, Lorna's been traveling for 2 days. Here's a bunch of bug fixes. And they all had to come into one commit. There was no concept of staging just the changes that you want, which I think is one of the massive strengths of Git. So I didn't really understand why people were so excited about distributed version control. Like, Subversion never bothered me that I had to wait for the server to respond. But now I can't imagine for an instant having some of that information remote, not having all of the changes on all of the history of all of the branches ever just here all the time. That makes no sense. Why would you do that? That makes no sense. So I think there's that. Why did Git win the day? That's a really good question. There used to be, now somebody needs to fill me in on some technical naming detail. There was a source control tool which was, I don't remember the name of it, and it became a paid for tool, causing the Linux kernel to need new source control. So Git was born. And at the same time, Mercurial was born out of the same thing, and also Bazaar, if you've used that. Bazaar is amazing. I kind of wish that had won. Mercurial is demonstrably better than Git in every possible way. Git is aimed at Linux kernel developers. I am somewhere that doesn't say Linux kernel developer on the spectrum of geekability. So it's a tricky one. I think Git won. Part of that story is definitely GitHub. At one time, you had to have specific tools. I think I originally used Tortoise SVN way back in the day. The barrier to entry for source control was reasonably high, and some of it was paid for. GitHub took all of that away. So while I wouldn't say that it's a winner in terms of its technologies, it does have quite a lot of the strengths of the competing products. And around the time that we all moved our projects off SourceForge, there was a Google Code phase, and both of those were good and reasonably independent. If your code's not on GitHub, no one will find it now. So we are where we are. I'm a project maintainer. I'm a power user of Git now. Accidentally wrote a book about Git once, but should Git have won? It's a little bit of a VHS Betamax question. Demonstrably no, but and sadly I'm not in charge of the world, and here we are. I'm just going to pour the rest of this tea. It's probably a bit stewed. What else is going on in the questions space? Did I say anything there that you'd like to see more of? Ben, do you need a Rebase demo? That was really interesting, thank you. Yeah, I try not to talk about the Subversion thing. I'm genuinely not old enough to have used CVS. But I did really enjoy Subversion, yeah. And I didn't... I think Git came along at a time that I didn't need it. I do need it now. And the thing with Git is it's not that hard once you know how. And the getting to know how is just... It's a mystery. The one from last week's call was awesome. Yeah, I demonstrated Rebase for my team with like post-it notes and an extra webcam. That was quite exciting. I just used SVN for a job 2 years ago. Yeah, someone asked me if I would help them with Subversion. It was more than 2 years ago, like 4 years ago. And, you know, I used to work on this and teach this, train teams on Subversion all the time. So now I literally can't remember anything. It's as if I had never seen this tool before. I turned the work down because I just didn't know how to do it. Ben also says this history of version control was fascinating. Yeah, so we used to have centralized version control. Now we have distributed version control. It's amazing. And also means that you can't lose all your history and that no one can make any sneaky changes because every commit in Git has awareness of its parent that has awareness of its parent. So we can be certain that there's nothing horrible going on in backdoors that we didn't see the commits come in for. It's a whole different world, and I get a bit itchy if I'm trying to write in a directory that doesn't have, you can see in my terminal I have the branch prompt. If there's no branch name there, I can't type. It makes me anxious. Awesome. We've got what's wrong with plain old FTP? It's not a source control system. Pretty sure FTP is alive and well and probably still widely used. Alex is saying, I'd like to hear about repos with multiple upstream Git instances, for example, managing GitHub and Heroku. This is a good question. Let's talk about multiple remotes. Now, managing GitHub and Heroku is one use case, but the other place where I often see multiple remotes is when I'm contributing to a repository that I don't own. So I've forked an upstream project and made changes, and then opened a pull request by pushing a branch to my fork. So that's when I typically work with multiple remotes. Let me think about where I have that. So for example, I am a maintainer actually on a project called RST to PDF. But I would typically I don't push my feature branches to their repo, even though I do have access to do that. And on a commercial team, typically everybody does just keep all their branches in one place. For open source contributions, you'll pretty much always push to your own fork. So you go to GitHub, you fork the project, you get the project copied over, and then you need to keep track of those things locally. Cool. A couple of people coming in. Hi Lily, hi Dodo. Thanks for joining. So yeah, if you type Git Remote, you'll see I have two remotes. One is called Lorna Jane and one is called Upstream. So Upstream is the main RST to PDF project, and Lorna Jane is my fork. So both of those are GitHub projects. If this was deploying to Heroku, or I was pushing to, I think you can, let's use Heroku. You can get Heroku adds a Git Remote and then pushes to that. Then you would see that listed here as well. Bunch of people joining the chat as well. Hello, Brett. Thanks for joining. Awesome. We've got some good afternoon and good evening, and I know we've got some people for whom this is the morning, so just like I've got my cup of tea, doesn't matter what time of day it is. If you look at these remotes with the -v switch, then you can see that we've got two remotes for each of those endpoints, and you can see their addresses, and they're normally pairs, they're normally the same. One is the fetch remote and one is the push remote. Why are there two, I hear you ask? Well, you can fetch from like a mirror of a repository, and this is really useful for very large repositories or very slow data connections. So you'll sometimes see data mirrors, particularly places like Australia that are always at a disadvantage because of their connection speeds. If something isn't hosted in a good place for them, that can be useful. But you can't open a pull request on a mirror. It's got to go to the main repo. So then you might use fetch for a local mirror, or if you're all pulling loads of data down, but it's the same data, and you're all in the same office building, not that we ever are now, but in the days when we had offices, then having the fetch remote separate is a feature. So that's why you'll normally see pairs. Typically, we're all going to have them matching, and they'll all be GitHub or Heroku or something. Yeah, offices, I remember those, says Brett. Yeah, Brett, actually, I've worked from home for a decade. So it's quite nice. Everybody has to do video calls from home now because I'm here at home, and I'm like obviously at home, and so is everybody. It's not like everybody else is in a nice boardroom and I'm just here. So with these remotes, I can push and pull to different places. Now I want to show you my, gosh, this is probably a mess, but I'm going to show you anyway because it's a real project, so it's going to be a real mess. That's how this works. It's not as bad as I thought. With the Git branches, so using the VVV switch on the branches shows you a few things. I am not sure how clear this is going to be on the stream. Let me make the font size a bit bigger because the important stuff is in blue. So let's look at my master branch. In the square brackets in blue is the remote branch that this branch is tracking. So I can type git pull with no arguments. And what will happen is if there are more commits on my remote than on my local branch, then I'll get those. Let's just test that theory. So the most, oh yeah, there probably are. The most recent commit here is set dev to 0.98. But the most recent commit on my GitHub account fail is going to be repositories. Oh, it's here. RST to PDF. There it is. The most recent commit there is, oh yeah, no, they do match. That's fine. But I don't think they match master. I think I saw a merge go past that I don't have. Yeah, so there was a commit yesterday that I don't have. So if I'm on my master branch is tracking the master branch of my fork. So git pull doesn't do anything. But git pull upstream master brings all the changes from the project's master branch into my master branch. And then if I git push, it's going to push to the tracking branch. So it pushes up to Lorna Jane's remote on GitHub. Now this is really important because I need to keep my master branch in sync with the project's master branch so that when I make a new feature branch, it's branching from current master and not from 3 weeks ago or 3 years ago or whenever it was I last worked. When you work with multiple remotes, understanding that you have one local branch, you can push from this branch to any other branch. And your branch also has a tracking branch that it will push to by default if you don't specify where to push to. Those are the key concepts. So to work with Heroku, normally you'll get a new Heroku remote. And that's why, and there'll be like a Heroku command, but you can also just git push Heroku master. And that will push your changes to that remote's master branch. So there's a few use cases where you need to work with multiple remotes. It's not particularly hard. I recommend that you set everything up like this. So all of your remotes, all of your local branches track the fork that you own's local branch. So in the Heroku pattern, you're still going to track your GitHub branch. And then you're going to specify if you want to work with a non-default remote, so upstream or Heroku or whatever. Alex, am I answering your question? Does this make sense how you would work with those multiple branches? Everything's just a branch and the remotes are no different to your local install. Everything is just a repository and they're all equal. Your local is not, other than it can have its own checkout, is not that different. Alex says completely. Marvelous. We're doing very well. Okay. Next question. And it's Ben. Thoughts of using GitHub Web Editor and pushing everything to production with YOLO as every commit message. Dismissible offense, Ben. Next question. I'm doing that a disservice. The GitHub Web Editor has come a really long way. You can definitely make changes with a GitHub Web Editor. Please commit them onto a branch. But especially if you're out and about or you don't have tooling on your machine, if you're, for some reason doing a thing somewhere, then it's fine. But committing to master with or committing with bad commit messages. Neither one is ever cool. So no to neither of those. Brett says, I love Git, but I hate explaining Git. You explain it well, I just confused myself. Brett, I have had a lot of experience at explaining Git. It's about 10 years since I first became a sole project maintainer. I had commit access before that, but I kind of didn't get too into it. And we had already moved our project to GitHub by then. So I have explained Git in many forms to many people. And I hope, I'm happy this is working out for you. I feel like Git can really get in our way as developers, right? You're doing great work and then the tool says no. And that just annoys me, really. So I like to share everything that I can about Git. Also, we answer at least one Git question a week on this stream. So I thought I'd dedicate a whole episode to just talking about Git, because we always do talk about Git. Git shouldn't be in your way. So if I can help anyone to skill up and be able to get their work done better, then this was totally worth it. And I've blogged about Git, I've written about Git, I've spoken about Git. I think it's, lots of people do have familiarity, but also we're all new to the industry sometime. And having really good educational materials around is so important. So I'm super happy that Vonage were fine with me just picking up on Git questions. I mean, all our stuff is open source. If you want to work with our libraries, our API specs, our documentation platform, it's all open source. So even at work, I spend a lot of time instructing colleagues and community contributors on Git. So it's like, yeah, it's my pet project. Greg is asking, if a colleague pushes changes to a branch and I pull those changes, should I have to spend time solving merge conflicts, or has something gone wrong? Probably you're doing too much in one branch. So conflicts are expected. If there is a conflict, it doesn't mean you've done something wrong or someone else has done something wrong. If two of you are working on the same feature, then the best thing to do is to make absolutely sure that your commit lands first. And that means that the other person will then have to resolve the merge conflict. So that's my first piece of advice. Always commit first, always. If you are pulling a branch and finding merge conflicts, there's a few things that happen here. I'm going to draw you another picture. Ready? Let's get the picture thing. If we've got, let's try and stick with time still going in the same dimension. I think that's simple. This isn't the stylus for that thing. This is the stylus for that thing. Okay. If you've got let's say this branch is master, and then we somehow branch off, and you and your colleague are both working on the feature branch. You're working on some local stuff. How am I going to symbolize that? Is blue and green too similar? I'm going to go for it anyway. This is you, the green is you working locally. This is like not quite finished yet. And meanwhile, more commits have landed on the branch on the remote. That's fine. But what you don't want to do is merge those changes in on top of yours, including if this is a local commit. Instead, try a command called, I'm going to try and write, but we'll see how well this works. Instead of doing git pull, make sure you've committed your work before you pull anything. And then instead of doing git pull, do git pull -- rebase. And what that does is it takes your work and kind of slots it on top of what went before. So that can help with the merge conflicts, and can also help to avoid merges in the middle of a feature branch. Because exactly like merging in master, it makes things much harder to follow and much harder to review. Just realised that some of this window is dropping off the view, so I'm just going to fiddle about with my picture. I don't know what to do about that. The window capture literally doesn't get all of it. That's excellent. Oh yeah. Right, yeah, hold on. Quite sure what'll happen to this when I try and move it around. There we go. That's a bit better. There we are. Command fits on now. And I've realised the select is making it go weird. Cool. So yeah, and check the chat. Git pull -- rebase. So always commit before you pull. And if you know that there are other commits, or you suspect there might be, then do git pull -- rebase. You might still see a conflict, and that's expected. So if you've both added a line into the config file, or you've both changed the same part of the template, there's going to be a conflict. That's expected, and it's not automatically a bad thing. But if every pull and every merge always gives you a conflict, you need to look at how you're organising your work and how you're communicating with each other, because I tend to think that's like a bad smell. It should, collaboration with source control, especially with the new systems like Git or Mercurial, shouldn't be hard work. So Greg, if it's super painful, then yeah, let's try and figure out if we can make that easier for you. But try git pull -- rebase, because I think it could really help. The next question comes from Alex again. One of the things I always have to look up is cherry picking. Can you show me an easier way to cherry pick? I don't know what way you are already cherry picking, but you are welcome to a cherry picking demo, and let's see if that is gonna help at all. So let's say I'm a little bit hesitant to work with real repositories in case I push and break something. So we'll do an imaginary repository. Let's see. So we'll change over to this, and I'm just going to add a bunch of commits. This is where I really should have brought some commit scripts, but let's add a bunch of commits. In fact, let's just... Did you know that Git repositories are just files, and I can clone locally? Let's just clone that to here. I think I can pretty much just do that. No. Oh yeah. Oh, I see. I should have specified the dot there. Never mind. Here we go. So I've got this history, and I'm on the feature branch. Let's add... How's this going to work? Let's add another commit on the master branch. Let's just touch another file. My echo dot is looking at me. She's not talking. Okay. So we'll add this here. And then we'll add some other stuff as well. I'm hoping this is still quite watchable, even though I'm kind of just making empty files. I'm just trying to create some history so that we've got something to look at. Right, so let's grab out that graph command again so you can see what I've got. I've got stuff in the feature branch. There's a few things that have happened in unmaster, and you can see I've also got origin master. So the origin in this case is the other repository that's on disk. There's no reason that the remote has to be GitHub or some other cloud service. You can have one repo be the remote of another repo on disk. You can use local file servers for this. There's a bunch of stuff you can do. That's not really my point. It's just a bit of trivia because you just watched me do something that's probably unusual and clone one repository from a local repository. Excellent. So let's say we're still working on the feature branch. We need that config change. So normally I would, actually that's a really terrible example. Anyway, it's a really terrible example. You would never cherry pick from the master branch. You would always just rebase. But I need a commit from somewhere to use as an example. So we're going to use that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check out the feature branch. And if you look at the log of the feature branch, I've got that first commit where I added the file 1. And then I've got the commit that we squashed, which I've got 2 and 3 in. But I don't have either the for, the config, or the more features, which have all been added on the local master. And one of them's on upstream master as well, origin master. So I'm still using master as my main branch name in this example. You can also change it for local repositories and have it initialize with a different name. So there's definitely options for that if you would like to. I am going to, if you look right at the top of my terminal now, you can see the end of that graph output. I am going to cherry pick the config commit because you will write commit messages as I say you should, not as you actually see me write commit messages. I'm going to grab that config commit and I'm going to cherry pick it into the feature branch. So it is just going to bring one commit and it's going to put it next in my history. So git cherry pick the commit that I want, which is going to be 664. You can type as many things as you can. Oh, what's wrong with that? 664D, is it bad? I disagree with that assessment. Have a look at the graph. Git cherry pick. I'm looking at it. 664D, whatever, 5. There it is. You can sometimes get that bad revision if it doesn't understand it or you haven't typed enough letters. It'll also tell you if it conflicts. The Git Commit Hashes, you can see one at the end of the Git Log output on my screen now, are typically that many characters of hex. But you can refer to them by 4 or 5 characters quite easily, as you can see here, or you can copy and paste the short versions of the hashes or the long versions. This Git Log one line output gives you 7 characters, and that's plenty for the vast majority of repos. I've done the Git cherry pick. Let's look at how our graph looks now. So my feature branch has branches from 1, has the squashed 2 and 3 features that we have, and then has the extra config commit, which I cherry picked in, and it literally picks the commit and puts it onto the branch that you're currently on. The usual cherry pick scenario for me, I'm reading off the chat from Alex, the usual cherry pick scenario for me is that I need to cherry pick all the commits on my branch except the last 2 ones, for example. Oh, so then don't do that. Let's say we want a feature. I feel like this branch is getting a bit, I may have to go and use a real commit to get an example here. If you need all the commits except the last 2, in fact, let's go and find a real repository because I think this would make more sense. Okay, this is our API specifications repo. So I know that I have a bunch of pull requests open on this. You can also see the Git Log, one line, graph, all, decorate. Decorate's really important. It's what puts the branch and tag names on. Otherwise, you'd have no idea what you're looking at. So we've got an OAS redesign work in progress, which let's just skate over that, looking at the commit messages. I am working. I love there's a branch here called Lorna Test, and it says more awesome now included. I have no idea what's in that. Brilliant. Let's look at the voice spec refactoring branch, which I just had checked out. So I can do git checkout minus, and that puts me, you can, a bit like cd minus to switch back and forth between directories. This puts you back and forth between repositories. So just a little extra tip for you there. Okay, so I'm on voice spec refactoring. I really don't want to break this, so I'm just going to check out a new branch and use it for, I'm going to call it demo purposes. And then I'm going to know what it was for and why it's here. So if we have a look at the log on this, you can't really see what's going on. Let's do head and master. So this is going to show you the graph with only the master branch and my current branch on it. So this is master. Oh no, it's showing me a bunch of stuff. And we are here. I need a big sign that says, you are here. Here's head. This is where we are. And it branches back onto master down here on this voice tag. So Alex's scenario is needing everything off a branch except the last two. So what we're going to do here is we're going to check out master, and we're going to branch from master, and we're going to get everything except the last two commits from another branch. The first thing I'm going to do is get the branch that's going to come onto master into the right state. So we've got a demo purposes. I am going to make the demo purposes branch point to, where's my mouse? Here it is. This commit here. So we're gonna discard those first two commits. We're gonna make the branch so it only includes everything except the last two commits. It's the and Alex is saying it's the last two because I messed it up, tried to fix it, and fail even worse. Yes. So this will help you. Now the command that I'm going to show you now is git reset -- hard. Lorna Jane did not say you could run git reset -- hard. She said you need to be really careful when you run this command. Git reset -- hard is the best way I know to lose a day's work. So I've said that up front. It's not irretrievable. If you've ever committed your work, we can get it back from the Git Commit Log within 30 days before the garbage collector runs. But it's more excitement than we need. So do as I do and check out an extra branch to experiment on. So the demo purposes branch is going to be changed so the newest commit is the one before we tried to fix a bunch of stuff. You can see that I've had to bump the version number. So let's go back to before that. Ready? Git reset -- hard. I'm going to give the commit message, commit identifier that I want. You can do a tag name here. You can also make a branch point to another branch. So a common one for me is somebody else has pushed a branch. So I need to make my branch the same as origin, that branch. So if you're collaborating with someone who likes to force push, you'll end up using this. Always make sure you've committed everything first and you know where everything is. Practice on a second branch if you're not sure. My branch now includes everything except the last two commits from that voice spec refactoring branch. Let's have a look at the graph. Down a bit. There it is. So this is us. We're on head. Our current branch is the demo purposes branch. We were here and we've dropped those two commits. So the branch doesn't have those commits in now. So that's step one of Alex's question. How do I drop those last two commits? And then how do I cherry pick those onto another branch? You might not need to because this might be all that you need. Or you can branch from master and merge this in. Probably the right thing to do is to rebase this onto master so that all these commits only occur after master. So if we don't want this to be here, we can just rebase. And if you have a look at what that's done to my graph, it's up. You can see it's here. So there's master 9A-E8. And here are the 3 commits that were early in that branch that are now my branches based off newest master. Alex, is this answering your question? If you find yourself cherry picking a whole sequence of commits, it's probably not the right thing. The other time when I see people do this is for my work is fine, but I included a commit that I didn't mean to. And for that, again, I probably would check out a second branch if you were feeling worried about it. But using the Git Rebase interactive that I showed you before, you can remove that one troublesome commit. So that can be really useful if, for example, you branched from the wrong place, accidentally branching from a branch that already had extra commits in it. It happens. And we can, this stuff can really, really help. How are we doing? Is anyone, please give me an emoji in chat and tell me how you're feeling. Did anyone learn anything? Does anyone just have more questions now? Is there anything else you'd like to see while you've got my attention? This is a great time to tell me. No Git questions. Okay. I think that we've covered some really good stuff today. We've definitely covered stuff that I think is really common ground. And the same things trip us up. One of the big problems with Git, of course, is the day-to-day stuff we do all the time. You know how to do this. It's the occasional stuff. It's the, oh, something unexpected happened stuff. And by definition, that doesn't happen every day. It shouldn't happen every day. So we're a bit less familiar with it, and it can be pretty tricky to figure out what to do. I mean, I work, as you see, always here in the terminal, and that means, and when things get really sticky, you are always going to have to fix it from the terminal. And so I feel like that gives me an unfair advantage because I'm already familiar with the difficult tools. I absolutely agree with the comment that was made earlier that having a good diff tool that you understand and that can show you different views is really, really valuable. We talked about VS Code, and I've been really impressed with, I'm not brave enough to use the Git interface on that yet, because I'm just getting started with it. But there's a bunch of really good stuff there, and I think there are a bunch of tools which have really good support in this space. Lauren says this has been helpful. That makes it all worth it. Thank you, Lauren. I think the Git stuff is, look, it's an essential tool for sure, but it's something that I hope I've given you something here that helps this stuff just not get in the way. I think it's something we come up against all the time. I think it's really worth it for adding to your skills, because you're going to use those skills wherever you go, whatever work that you do, whatever tech stack you work in. We all need these. We all need these skills, and it's about being able to work efficiently and well, and also about being able to contribute confidently. It's one thing to open an issue on somebody else's repository, but it's quite another to figure out how to fork their repository, how to get their code, how to make the correct branch. Some projects will have rules about branches, naming, commit format, and so getting everything correct and then pushing it and opening the pull request, there's quite a lot of moving parts there. So I'm really happy that those of you that have dropped in today have done that and spent the time skilling up. I think Git is the most transferable skill of all of the tech disciplines. It's the thing all of us use and all of us need. So yeah, no, it's been really good to focus on this and spend some time chatting with you about it. I hope everyone had a nice time. I want to talk a little bit about what's coming up. So I am back in 2 weeks. Next week you can see the low code hour, and the week after on at the same time, also on a Wednesday, I'm going to be back and I'm going to talk about receiving webhooks and using queues for that. I think we don't use enough queues for making robust systems, and I love them, and I might tell you my story about the day that saved me. So I'm going to come back and do that. But if you have questions for us, anything you want to know about the work that we're doing or with our open source libraries or any of our products, then it's really good just to either tell me in the chat now or tweet at me in between this and when I'm back, because this is your time, so I'm really happy to pick up whatever you're interested in. I think I'm being trolled. Bald Bearded Builder wants to tell us more about coffee. So I have a terrible confession about coffee. We're still fairly locked down here in the UK. So I'm at home and my husband's also working from home. We have the most gorgeous big espresso machine, which he normally baristas on, but I don't think we've turned it on once in lockdown. Luckily he bought a new grinder, so I have a decent grinder in the kitchen and I just use the AeroPress. We've also been very enthusiastically supporting our local coffee roasters. And so we have plenty of excellent coffee beans. They just deliver big bags to the door. It's fantastic. So that's my coffee story. You saw the teapot earlier, those people who were here at the start of the stream. I might bring a teapot every time, because this really improved my sitting and chatting and telling you a thing. So that worked pretty well. Bald Bearded Builder is saying Laura and I are from the same town. Absolutely. So I'm from Birmingham, and so is Bald Bearded Builder. So we're essentially cousins. Is the story that we have. Okay. I'm not being deluged with either lots of demands or questions or anything, so I am going to park it right there. Hilariously, my password app just closed itself, but I'm not screen sharing, so you can't see that now. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I hope it was helpful. Like I say, there's no real big schedule for this. I'm going to talk about queues in a couple of weeks. Tell me what else you'd like to see. Tell me what you found useful. Tell me what you wish we were doing. And I will do my best to bring you that on different weeks. Cool. All right. Well, with that, that is enough from me. I will let you go back to your mornings, afternoons, or evenings, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.